This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and occasionally I'll be bringing you some bonus episodes highlighting some amazing individuals who are participating in some fun outdoor events or helping some incredible nonprofits, as well as some up-and-coming outdoor companies. Regular episodes will continue to come out on Mondays, and when we have a bonus episode, those will drop on Fridays. Our newest bonus episode is with Cindy from 48 Peaks Hike for Alzheimer's. Established in 2013, each year hikers climb the 48 4,000 footers in the White Mountains of New Hampshire in a quest to end Alzheimer's and dementia. In one big collective effort, they're climbing to the tops of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers and beyond to raise funds and awareness for all those affected by Alzheimer's and other dementias. One team for each peak, with the Alzheimer's cause driving it all. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at 48peaksALZ, and be sure to check out all the links in the episode show notes. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Cindy. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. This one's going to be a special episode as I have Cindy from 48 Peaks. It's Hiking to End Alzheimer's, and I'm really excited to have her on the podcast to share about the event and how you can participate and be able to contribute to the event. Thank you, Cindy, for joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ivan. Great to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you because this is a very special event where I haven't seen too many nonprofits or agencies mix hiking and raising awareness and fundraising together. So I was really excited to find you guys on Instagram and see what you've been doing. I feel like a lot of people have heard about Alzheimer's, or they might have family members that have been impacted by Alzheimer's, but are you able to share with us a little bit about what the disease is and how it impacts individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. This is such an important question, and I'm really glad you asked it because it made me think a lot about it when I was preparing. So I wrote down some specific points just as reference for your listeners. I'm a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. So I had our event manager help me with these points to put together. If you want more specific information, I encourage you to go to the Alzheimer's Association's website for more information. And the website is alz.org. And you can also go to their FAQ page, which is alz.org/FACTS. So going back to your question, what is Alzheimer's disease? Over 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. So it's highly likely that everyone knows someone affected by this disease, unfortunately. Alzheimer's itself is a degenerative brain disease and the most common form of dementia. Dementia itself is not a specific disease, which is something I didn't realize until now. It's an overall or general term that describes a group of symptoms like decline in memory, reasoning, or other thinking skills. So Alzheimer's disease falls under this umbrella of dementia, and it's a specific brain disease that accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases, which is a lot. As for symptoms of Alzheimer's and dementia, they typically occur and progress over the span of a decade or more. which is a very long time. I didn't realize that either. But we know Alzheimer's and dementia begin developing long before these symptoms appear and we notice them. And this is why talking with your doctor and being tested early is so key to addressing these conditions early on. Now, in terms of specific symptoms, I can share some from my family's experience because I find real life examples more helpful than a list. I'm always like a visual person or at least like example based. So sometimes symptoms can be subtle as they develop and a list doesn't always capture that. So symptoms can vary though from what I will share. So please check out the Alzheimer's Association's website, alz.org, for the complete list. So my two examples will be my maternal grandmother and also her sister, my grand aunt, who have lived with dementia or have dementia currently. My gram lived with dementia and passed away in 2010. And I believe she was diagnosed sometime when I was in middle school. She continued to decline into my high school years until passing away when I was in college. But with Graham, early on, she could be very confused, not able to piece together how things worked, like the TV, or how to do certain tasks like cooking. And as a result, she could become quite irritable. And that confusion often led her to become suspicious of people she didn't know, including the in-home health aides. And she would hide money around the house and forget she had any, or put Coca-Cola cans in the freezer to cool them down and forget she put them there. And then they would explode in the freezer and my mom would have to clean them up. As Graham's dementia progressed, she got lost driving home on a few occasions. And my mom finally convinced her to give up her license by fibbing that Graham would have to take a test to renew it. And since Graham didn't recall how that process works, she accepted my mom's reasoning and didn't drive anymore. And that's a common thing you encounter with dementia patients. They just don't remember and they're confused and, they'll just accept your answer. So later on in her dementia journey, my Graham became more aggressive, which is another common symptom. By nature, she wasn't aggressive. She wouldn't hurt a fly. But my dad recalls an instance where he honestly thought my Graham was going to punch my mom in the face. And he had never seen such an aggressive emotion from her, but it can happen. And it shows how dementia and Alzheimer's can lead to a complete alteration of the person you know and love. I do want to mention that not everyone experiences these aggressive symptoms like my Graham did. For example, my neighbor's father had dementia and he was very docile and not aggressive at all. So it's important to keep this in mind that the symptoms definitely vary from person to person. Now, going back to Graham, later on, she could no longer recognize me, and same with some of my relatives. She would mix up faces, like she saw a photo of my grandfather and thought it was my uncle. And then she even didn't recognize her sister and would call her that girl upstairs when my grandaunt would go over to visit. And I imagine that was really difficult for my grandaunt, to experience because it's your sister and she doesn't remember you. It's also kind of sad because now my grandaunt that I mentioned is also living with dementia now. She has similar symptoms as my Graham, and she's in that confusion state where she doesn't recognize that she hasn't showered or washed her hair in some time. She doesn't see the need to either and can get irritable and angry and reaching the point of she can't take care of herself anymore or really drive herself around. They actually had to disconnect some wires in her car so she couldn't start it up anymore. And that's the only way they could get her to stop driving. But it's also, you were asking in terms of impact on people, like the diagnosis of Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's an impact not just on, your loved ones, but also on the caregivers, because it's such an extensive job, really. And it's unpaid. And it just takes a whole lot out of you as well.
Oh, I appreciate it, Cindy, you being able to share your personal experiences with it. Going through the website and seeing some of the stats that are on there was really shocking to find out how many people are battling Alzheimer's in different degrees of impact in the United States.
For sure. It's 6 million, over 6 million, and it's only increasing since our aging population continues to grow as well. The need is there for sure.
And what I love about 48 Peaks Hike for Alzheimer's is you're not only bringing awareness to it, but you're doing it in a unique way to get people outdoors and really bring awareness to the impact of Alzheimer's while also fundraising to be able to help in multiple ways. Can you share a little bit about the history of how 48 Peaks came about?
Absolutely. I clearly love talking about it. It's very personal for me. The event 48 Peaks itself originally began in 2013. So this is our 10-year anniversary. We became a more formal event in 2015. So back in 2013, a New Hampshire man was inspired to do something to raise awareness and funds for the Alzheimer's Association in honor of his wife, who was living with younger onset Alzheimer's. So he decided to participate in the Alzheimer's Association's key fundraising event called The Longest Day. And for his activity as part of that event, he chose to hike in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Now, unfortunately, this man's wife has since passed away, but since 2015, the New Hampshire, Massachusetts chapter of the Alzheimer's Association has continued organizing our 48 Peaks hike in her memory and for all others affected by Alzheimer's and other dementia. So what started out as just a handful of teams made up of close friends and family has now grown into a regional event and brought a community. So each year we have new teams and returning teams who hike with us every year. And it's really great to see how the event has grown and to celebrate our 10th year this summer, which is a huge milestone for us. And just in terms of where 48 Peaks got its name, the name originates from the 48 Peaks in New Hampshire's White Mountains. These peaks are over 4,000 feet in elevation, including the well-known Mount Washington. And they're also part of a list which is called the NH48 list. So oftentimes our hikers choose to hike peaks as part of their list. For example, I'm hiking Mount Willie this summer, which is towards my list. So it's a great opportunity to hike for your personal goals, but also supporting a great cause at the same time.
Yeah, and you guys have really made it, in a way, customizable, but you're able to provide different opportunities to folks. What are some of the different ways folks can get involved besides doing the 48 Peaks?
Yeah, we have a couple options this summer for those in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. In terms of when, you can hike either around the summer solstice in June, which is the longest day, or you can hike anytime over the summer, whenever works best for you. As for the Howe, our first option is hiking any of the New Hampshire 4,000 footers you want. Our goal is to have at least one team on each of the 48 peaks, which we have accomplished this year already. And we're looking forward to filling our second round of teams/peaks, which is really great. Alternatively, you can create your own hiking adventure. You may choose to hike maybe the Berkshires in Western Mass, some mountains in southern New Hampshire, Cape Cod, or if you like a particular challenge, we have teams who have hiked the Presidential Traverse or the Pemigewasset Loop up in New Hampshire, which are extensive hikes. And mind-blowing. Someone did like out and back Presidential Traverse, which is I think 30 miles or something. Unreal, like so amazing. But separate from hiking, we've introduced a new sponsor summit program this year. So companies or entities from anywhere can get involved with 48 Peaks. And we have various benefits of sponsorship, like social media highlights, being on our event t-shirt, and teams carrying banners with the company's name to the specific summits they sponsored. And there's more, but we currently have 2 companies on board, 2 in the works. And if you're interested, please reach out to me or our event manager, Megan, for more info. It's a great new initiative. And then if you want to reach out to her too for ideas on adventures you can create, go for it. We have some new 48 Peaks inspired events in New York State, actually, which is really awesome. There's a Paint the Peaks Purple in the Adirondack Mountains. And now they're trying to plan one in the Catskills. So if you're in New York State, be on the lookout. They're coming. It's great. And then just in terms of fundraising support, of course, our event manager, Megan's a great resource. Myself and our other volunteers are happy to be resources. You can check out our website for other tips. And there's also Facebook fundraisers, which are really cool tools to use for asking for donations and sharing your story. You can even collaborate with maybe a local bakery or a restaurant to collect donations in support of your hike. And in recognition of people who fundraise, we have various incentives throughout our year to recognize them. For example, if you raise $100 or more, we have a cool moisture wicking 48 Peaks t-shirt we'll give you. And we recently had a headlamp beanie that we gave out for those who registered and raised $250 by March 31st. So we have a lot of really great initiatives. And there's more than that, I'm sure, that I missed.
And that beanie that you guys offered with the headlamp built in was awesome. If you sign up now, I think one of the perks that you guys just announced was the t-shirt design was chosen for this year's event. And is it just signing up that you would get the t-shirt, or do you have to raise a certain amount?
So yeah, you sign up and then you can either donate $100 yourself or you fundraise $100, and that'll qualify you for the event t-shirt for this year.
And you guys kind of did a crowdsource winners for the t-shirt design, right?
We did. We had a little contest where people could submit their designs, and we had a number of good ones. This one, I think, was a combination of a couple. So there's the mountains in the background and then the trail sign in the front that says "This way to a world without Alzheimer's." There's a little hiker with a dog on the mountains too.
You know, one of the great things that I love what your organization is doing is you have a section on the website about the dollars at work, where the money goes that's being raised during this event and how it's being used to help those impacted with Alzheimer's. Can you share a little bit about the impact that those funds are making in the Alzheimer's community?
Absolutely. Megan helped me with this, so I'm going to cover these as best I can. So the funds raised by 48 Peaks and our other longest day events across the country advance four main areas of the Alzheimer's Association. So they are advocacy, support, education, and research efforts. And I can very briefly touch on each of these. With education, the Alzheimer's Association provides free programs to families, long care facilities, companies, and whoever wants to learn about Alzheimer's and related dementias. For support, they offer free support groups, both in person and virtual, for those living with Alzheimer's and caregivers of any age. Other support groups are geared towards people with loved ones experiencing a specific stage of Alzheimer's or dementia. For example, one of our 48 Peaks volunteers is a young caregiver, and her mom has early onset Alzheimer's. So she recently joined a support group focused on young caregivers like herself, and she's been gaining a lot out of it. It's been a great resource for her and others. Third is advocacy. So these funds are used to advocate for the needs and rights of those living with Alzheimer's by working with local and federal lawmakers. And lastly is research. So the Alzheimer's Association currently invests over $320 million in over 1 million field projects around the world. And some are right here in Boston, where I'm based. And the purpose of these projects is to help identify new treatment strategies and further our knowledge of the brain and disease prevention. And all these efforts that I mentioned occur across the country, not just in the Massachusetts, New Hampshire chapter with which I volunteer with. And it's really great to see progress. There's been some recent FDA-approved drugs in the last few years, and most of them will allow more time by slowing down disease progression, which is huge, but there's still work to be done, and including getting, these drugs covered for patients. That's still an ongoing process.
Yeah. And I think just this week I saw that they potentially had a big breakthrough with a new drug study and trial that they did. So, with each year, it just seems like we're getting closer and closer to not just finding a cure, but also slowing down the impacts of those individuals that are already impacted with Alzheimer's.
For sure. If I remember correctly, the current approved drugs are for early stage patients. I think they're still working towards those who are more progressed in their disease.
And Cindy, you were talking about the different ways folks can participate in the event. Now, for first-time participants, do you have any tips or advice on whether, they're maybe trying to put together a team, or maybe they're just participating with an existing team?
Definitely. For those putting together a team, please don't feel pressured to do a New Hampshire 4,000 footer, especially if you're new to hiking. We don't want you doing something maybe it's outside your comfort zone and you're not ready for it. It's totally okay. That's why we made a create your own option to be more inclusive of everybody. So for example, my team is a range of beginner to advanced hiking experience. So we're going to do like an easier 4,000 footer in our case, there's Mount Pierce and Mount Osceola. If you're putting together a team, you can reach out to your friends and family to see if they'd like to join you. You can bring banners and maybe take a picture of your loved one on your hike in honor of them. Just make sure you have the right gear with you to go hiking safely. Keep an eye on the weather, of course, not just at the base, but also the higher summits. And reschedule if you have to. Please don't feel pressured to hike on the summer solstice. We have teams who hike all over the summer. And do reach out to Megan or us volunteers for help if you need guidance on which peak to choose or any other questions. In terms of participating on a team, if you'd like to join a team, check out our Facebook page. We have a specific event for finding and joining a team if you don't have one. And you can check in with your team captain or us volunteers if you need any guidance, like I said.
And Cindy, it sounds like you guys have a database of all the available hikes. So if somebody did have a specific question on, would you be able to recommend recommend a hike that isn't so steep? Would you be able to kind of find one in those 48?
Absolutely. We have a range of difficulties across the peaks, and there are a couple that are more beginner hikes for sure. And luckily, our event manager and most of us volunteers have hiked a lot of these peaks, so we can definitely offer personal experience and advice on that.
You know, one thing that I love about the hiking community is that they're so supportive of individuals and organizations that are getting people involved with the outdoors. For those individuals that live outside of the Northeast and they want to help with not just the event, but the organization, what are some of the ways that they can contribute?
There are a couple ways. You can, of course, donate to the Alzheimer's Association, either to the national level organization or perhaps to your specific state chapter. You can reach out to your local or national representatives to advocate for prescription drug coverage of the newly approved Alzheimer's treatments. You can also, in terms of fundraising, you can participate in any longest day event from anywhere in the country. There's always one in a local chapter that you can sign up with. For example, 48 Peaks grew out of the longest day, which is, as I mentioned, the Alzheimer's Association's key fundraising event every year. And you can pick any activity you like. We just happen to do hiking. Now, the name comes from the summer solstice, like I mentioned, so we can shine the most light as possible on Alzheimer's and dementia, because someone living with Alzheimer's and their caregivers every day feels like the longest day. And that's why we focus on that. So if you want to hike outside New Hampshire or Massachusetts, you can sign up through your state's longest day event and choose hiking as your activity. You can hike anywhere while benefiting your local chapter. And of course, you can honor those you love who are affected by Alzheimer's and dementia in the process. And a lot of other people host events around the summer solstice, but you can really participate any time of year. So if you're curious, you can go to the Longest Day website, which is alz.org/the longest day. You can also reach out to your local chapter to find out neat ways to get involved. We'd love to have more people join us.
Yeah, the more the better. And we'll be sure to include all those links in the episode notes so people can check out what's available for 48 Peaks, but also what's available locally. You know, one of the things, Cindy, that really got my attention, and I think it's so awesome, is that since the event was founded in 2013, the event itself has been able to raise over $700,000. And this year, the goal is to break the $1 million mark raised as far as since the inception. Do you guys have a specific goal for the 2023 event?
So we set our current goal, I believe it's $250,000 for this year. Last year, we brought in over $235,000. So we're aiming high again. We have had a bit of a tougher year this year, as everyone has, just with the economy being particularly difficult, and we're still coming out of the pandemic. So we would really like to reach $150,000 if we can this year. The last I checked, I think it was the other night, we had surpassed the $70,000 mark and are continuing to make progress. So we are doing great this year, and we do hope to hit the $1 million mark, as you mentioned, through 48 Peaks. Maybe it'll be this year. Maybe it'll be next year. I feel it soon, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm stoked for you guys to reach that milestone. I know you kind of mentioned ways folks can participate in the events, both locally and in the Northeast, but what are some of the different ways folks can donate towards their local event or the 48 Peaks event?
So for 48 Peaks specifically, you can head to our website, alz.org/48 Peaks. You can donate to the event itself or find a random person or team to support. Everyone participating has been impacted by Alzheimer's in some way, so any donations help, even if it's $5, which is equivalent to a coffee. You can be a sponsor or summit company if you like, and we'd love to chat with you. You can also host an event more locally at a restaurant or other establishment where a certain percentage could be donate to 48 Peaks or your local chapter if you're in a different state. And those events are usually pretty effective. And then when I mentioned for the longest day, you can go to your local chapter and donate directly to their webpage.
Cindy, you know, if folks aren't able to give financially, you guys have a wide range of volunteer opportunities as well, right?
We do. You can check with your local chapter for open opportunities. There's the longest day, there's the walk to End Alls, ride to End Alls, advocacy community efforts. So there's a lot of ways to get involved beyond just longest day events like I volunteer with.
I think when it comes to volunteering, I can hear and feel the passion that you have for the awareness that this event is bringing. Could you share a little bit about what keeps you coming back year after year?
I keep coming back because it's always for my gram. She passed 13 years ago, so this is my way of honoring her. And now, since her sister has dementia, it's my way of honoring my grandaunt as well. But I just am so impressed with what the Alzheimer's Association does. They advocate and do what they preach. What is it? Practice what they preach is the phrase I'm looking for. They're just making progress in all areas, from supporting patients and caregivers, offering programs for people like me who am not a caregiver, but I'm curious about the symptoms of Alzheimer's, and they're furthering research and there's new drugs being approved. So all around, they've just made so much progress, and I'm happy to be even a small part of that progress. So hopefully we'll meet the first survivor of Alzheimer's someday.
No, I think that's a great goal to strive for. And I think it's going to be, within our lifetime, it's getting closer and closer with each passing year.
Yeah, for sure. I can feel it coming. One of these upcoming FDA approvals will hopefully be the drug. That's the cure.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Now, Cindy, we've kind of talked about it, but the 48 Peaks event primarily takes place in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I haven't had a chance to visit the Northeast yet, but for those of us that haven't had a chance to hike around the White Mountains, how would you describe them, and what kind of makes them unique, where you might not be able to see similar things elsewhere in the United States?
This is a great question. I would have said unique, but you said that. So it's the White Mountains are part of the White Mountain National Forest, and it covers so much territory, from the west bordering Vermont to the east bordering Maine, south to the Lakes region, and north to the Canadian border. There's a lot of geography and varying terrain across these mountains. They're really rugged in certain parts and more gradual in others, but perhaps the best way to describe it is you will find just about anything, whether it's an easy jaunt to just a straight up vertical rock climb like I often deal with. We do have various trail lists which help with guiding you to maybe what you are more apt to hike. There's, the New Hampshire 4,000 footers, like I mentioned, but there's also the 52 with the view, the terrifying 25 list, which is something I'm probably not going to do, but there are people who do it. And then there's the New Hampshire 100 highest, the New England 100 highest, etc. So you can go from anywhere from just trail hiking to like bushwhacking, and you'll find something. But I'd say the three things that come to mind are that there's rocks everywhere because it is the granite state after all. So I definitely recommend wearing appropriate footwear. The trails are not necessarily flat. There are switchbacks, but you might be scrambling up rocks rather than dirt. And oftentimes you'll just go straight up a mountain. There are some really old trails, actually, and I really appreciate the history of it. We have some of the oldest trails in the country, like the Crawford Path, and it's the oldest regularly used foot trail in the country. And so there's some pretty neat history in these trails. If that's your thing, you can find it. Yeah, the last thing is, and most importantly, is the weather. The weather is so unique, and I cannot emphasize it enough because it can turn so suddenly. And a lot of hikers, particularly new hikers, underestimate the White Mountains because of this. They're not your typical hills to climb. There's books on books written about people who have lost their lives in the White Mountains. And it's because of the topography that it just spins up these crazy weather situations. So I just encourage people to be prepared. You can still have fun. Just like, bring your 10 essentials. Check out, there's Mount Washington Observatory's higher summit forecast is a really great resource for hikers as they head out. And they cover peaks, including the 48 peaks, so that you know what to expect. And you can even text them as well with certain words, and you'll get an updated weather report straight to your phone. And I know I definitely use that on trail, and it saved me a couple times from some pretty bad weather.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen in pictures that just makes me want to go visit and hike is some of the viewpoints that you get are those, rock outcroppings. It's like just a little pocket where you get a straight shot of the valleys and hills. Is that typical for most of the summits, is a rock outcropping?
Many of them are, particularly if you're above 4,000 feet. One thing the White Mountains have that's really, I don't know if you have this out west, but we have alpine zones over 5,000 feet. And it's those outcroppings you're talking about where it's just like hills as far as the eye can see and all these nice rocky places you can sit.
Oh, yeah, it just looks beautiful. And not just the springtime, but I can imagine the fall just with the colors. It's awe-inspiring.
Oh, it's stunning. I never get tired of it. And I grew up here.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question, Cindy, is we always like to ask our guests how they got started hiking and how long they've been hiking for.
I started hiking in a way, I would say, as a child. My parents sent me to nature camp, like the local Audubon chapter on my breaks. And, I went through that as a child and we were doing like 2-mile hikes, which to a kid felt like 10 miles. But I had a bit of a break during high school and college from hiking, and then I rediscovered it in grad school and I got the bug. It became this outlet for me. It helped me through a lot of mental blocks I was having at the time. And I realized I found an activity I enjoyed that was also good for my health. Like I hadn't found something like that before, and it was just something I stuck with. So I started hiking in New Hampshire in 2016, and then I did my first 4,000 footers later that year, which were actually 5,000 footers because I did Franconia Ridge. I have so many lists of lessons from that one hike that it's inspired like all my other hikes since then. But after that, I found 48 Peaks Hike for Alzheimer's, and the rest is history. I still love hiking, but the community I found is just amazing. I'm so grateful.
Oh, that's great. And I think a lot of hikers can relate to what you said about being out in the outdoors. Just it's such a positive, uplifting activity to do where, at least for me personally, after a hike, even if the weather isn't great, you feel better. Even if you had like a tough day at work or it was just a tough day, you end up leaving the trail happy.
Absolutely. It's one of those, it frees you mentally, maybe physically too.
Yeah. For you, Cindy, I imagine you have a list of favorite hikes, but what are some of the more memorable ones that you like to do each year?
Oh, that's a great question. If I want to go small, I honestly love visiting my local Audubon sanctuary where I went to nature camp as a kid. It's called Habitat, and I just really love going for a wander on those trails. I know them so well at this point. I've been going there for over 20 years. I don't have to think about where I'm going. It's wherever I end up, I know how to get back to where I started. And it's just really neat to see how the sanctuary has changed over the years. There are trees I remember that are fallen and are gone. There's a meadow I used to play in that's now like becoming trees again. So it's really neat to see nature in action. But if I'm up for traveling a little, I love heading towards Western Mass, and I'm a bit biased because I went to college out there. But my favorite spot is in the Pioneer Valley, and it's called Mount Sugarloaf. And this little hill is just under, I'd say, 700 feet tall, but it has this commanding view of the Connecticut River Valley and my school and all the surrounding hills. And it just has always become this special happy place for me. There's this summit tower at the top if you want a higher view, and there's picnic tables if you want a snack. But you can drive up, you can hike up. I've done both, but I would highly recommend if you're out that way in Western Mass to definitely check out Mount Sugarloaf. It's a real gem.
Oh, nice. And you said there's a fire tower at the top of it, a lookout tower?
Yeah, they built this. It's like 3 levels on the tower. So you can stay at the bottom or you can go up to the top in this little spiral staircase. It just gives you a really nice view.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, outside of the White Mountains, what are some other unique hiking features that are in your region that not necessarily you wouldn't find elsewhere, but that people might not consider?
Luckily, in New England, we have multiple states to choose from. You don't have to drive very long to get to another one. But for New Hampshire, honestly, there's just a ridiculous amount of rocks and tree roots. You could really go anywhere. That's like the primary part of New Hampshire. We have usually snow still on the ground for some of the higher summits until summer. I don't know about this year, but usually Mount Washington still has snow until May, depending. But southern New Hampshire, we have Mount Monadnock, which is a solo peak. And I believe it's the most hiked in the world after Mount Fuji, because It's so accessible. It's one of those very frequented peaks that they've had to put more restrictions in place because it's too popular. But I highly recommend Mount Monadnock. That's great. We have Belknap Range near Lake Winnipesaukee. You can hike really any side of Lake Winnipesaukee and have great views. It's like the biggest lake in New Hampshire. For Massachusetts, we have Cape Cod. So you could hike the sand dunes and the marshes down there. You could go up to the North Shore and hike around Plum Island, which is popular for shorebird watching if you like bird watching. And there's also the Boston Harbor Islands, which have trails too. So you can go out into the middle of the harbor and look back at the city. And they have boats out there, and you can just sit and chill and watch the planes come in and the boats. And then I'm biased, but Berkshires of Western Mass are a favorite spot for me.
Oh, I've heard good things about the Berkshires. Yeah. So one thing that I want to ask you, and I'm starting to pick up on this with people that I interview from not just the East Coast, but down South and Midwest, but there's pockets of hidden waterfall gems in each region. Would you say your area has a few really good waterfalls?
I know New Hampshire has some. I haven't visited them myself. You're reminding me I want to do this. Vermont has a lot of watering holes. They're usually like local based, like local communities know about it, but they have a lot of watering holes and waterfalls. And I have found some in Western Mass. When I was out at school, we went waterfall hunting. So you can definitely find some.
I know we talked about it, but the Northeast is known for its fall colors. How would you describe the fall color season in your area? And what advice would you give to first-time visitors that are trying to make it for the fall color season?
Oh, I'm a big Bob Ross fan. So I could describe it as like a Bob Ross painting, perhaps. We have really brilliant colors on the years we have good rain, but on other years, even when it's more of a drought and the colors are maybe a bit more drab, they're still so pretty to look at. And for me, it just feels like home because I grew up here and I just love experiencing the seasons. It feels weird when I travel somewhere without seasons. I can't really wrap my mind around it. But it's honestly my favorite time of year. It reminds me to enjoy things while you can, because sometimes it's only like a week or two before the colors are gone. But in terms of advice for first-time visitors, I would say avoid the tourist spots because there's too many cars.
Yeah, imagine the highways just get littered with cars parked alongside, especially if it's a popular viewpoint.
Yeah, it was bad up in New Hampshire last year. My friend Lynn and I wanted to do a foliage hike, and we wanted to go up into the White Mountains, but all the highways up there are like one lane each way and narrow because they're going through the notches, that it's just a parking lot. And then if you're on the other side roads, everyone's stopping to take photos and you can't get around them. So honestly, I would say avoid it. It's so horrible. We went a little further south and then there was no one. So I would say grain of salt when it comes to touristy attractions, particularly that time of year.
One thing that I really enjoyed going through the 48 Peaks Instagram feed is some of the summit pictures from teams on the day that they complete their hike. I imagine you guys just have a huge list of memorable summit pictures that you've seen throughout the years. But are there some standouts that you can kind of share with the listeners about what the teams did for their summit picture?
Yeah, we have a couple that come to mind. One year we had a team pile on each other for a pyramid picture. They were all in purple, and that was really cool. We have one of our mainstay teams, Team Sisu. They've been part of 48 Peaks since the beginning. They have "We Love You, Deb" signs in honor of their dear friend and teammate who is currently living with Alzheimer's. And they brought that sign to the top of Mount Garfield last year. And that was just really touching to see that. But in terms of recent years, we've had signs that say "I hike for blank," and you can fill it in with whoever you want. We have banners and flags, and those have been really fun, and jumping photos too, which is what my team does. But I would say, the photos are so great to see, But some of the stories I hear from our hikers are like, they stay with me more, honestly. We had our hiker event last summer, like the kickoff event in June, and I had a hiker approach me. I was working the raffle table, and she told me her mother had recently passed and had lived with Alzheimer's or dementia for some time. And she had brought her mother's ashes with her and scattered them at the summit that day. So it was very emotional. And she felt like she finally laid her mother to rest in a way, like that her mother wanted to be. And that always just really stuck with me and reminded me, why we do this. And they found a form of peace through 48 Peaks like I did. And I think that's really something special that photos can't always capture.
I think like the hiking community, that's really tight-knit and supportive. The Alzheimer's community, especially those that do this event frequently or yearly, it's even a closer-knit community, and you get to hear and share these stories of what the individuals and their family members and why they're doing it. And I think for me, as somebody that volunteers with nonprofits, that's what drives you to come back every year, is to, I guess, have that connection with those individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did not expect to find this community when I first joined 48 Peaks. I wasn't even thinking about volunteering when I first started hiking with it. And I have been so, dare I say, blessed by this small but very strong and tight community, like you were saying. It's something I didn't realize I was missing until I found it.
Yeah, you guys have something special going on over there. It's really, really great to see. Now, kind of going back to hiking, Cindy, when it comes to your pack list, what do you consider to be your most valuable piece of hiking gear?
Good question. In terms of actual pieces of gear, I would say my Garmin, my GPS, for peace of mind. Like, I sometimes solo hike, and it gives my parents, that safety net of knowing where I am, just in case something happens and I need to SOS or tell someone I'm running late. It's really helpful. I mean, my paper maps and compass are always with me anyway, just in case, but I like having it with me. And then figuratively, I would just say, my mind is my most important piece of hiking gear, just because if I'm not having common sense and actively assessing things, planning, reacting, I am at risk of having a problem and not making it back to my car. So I've learned a lot just from reading and listening to stories of other hikers. And unfortunately, we've had a number of tragedies in the White Mountains that I've learned from as well. And I just make my own mistakes, and I realize what works and what doesn't. And all these cool gadgets are cool, but I got to keep my mind just right so that I can hike and make it home.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think you're the first hiker to mention that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think people, when it comes to like actual gear, the Garmin tends to come up frequently, but yeah, your mind plays a very significant role, because I've been there in those situations where you get a little bit of summit fever, where you tend to push yourself into maybe situations that you shouldn't, but having that conscience or that understanding that, maybe this is where you call it, and it's better to just head back than to continue on.
Yeah, absolutely. The mountains will be there. You got to make it home. And we unfortunately, we had a story from, I think, November. We lost a 19-year-old hiker named Emily on Mount Lafayette. And we lost another hiker in the Presidential Range a month after. And they're just really horrible stories, but they're also good, lessons and moments to learn, what to do and what not to do. May they rest in peace, but we've had too many tragedies.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Cindy. And, for folks that are going there to hike that have never experienced the Northeast, what are some of the tips that you would give them, or advice that you would give first-time visitors that are looking to hike in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, definitely bring your 10 essentials. Your water, your food, your first aid, headlamp, map, etc. Leave no trace, pack in, pack out on your hike. During COVID, we had a lot of issues up in the White Mountains of people leaving trash. And we've had various, cleanup days that I know I've participated in, just to clean up the mess that was left behind. We have a hike safe card actually in New Hampshire. It's, I believe, $35 a year. It supports local search and rescue efforts through New Hampshire Fish and Game, and it helps mitigate rescue costs if you have an emergency and need to call for help. So I always have that on me just in case. Check the Mount Washington Observatory reports, the New Hampshire Trail reports, just to make sure you're ready when you head out on the trail and can make the decision to turn around and head home if you have to. It's, like I said, better to make it back to your car and home than not at all. And I mean, all hikes are worthy hikes. Like I said, a lot of people opt for the known or touristy hikes like Franconia Ridge, but those places are becoming like too popular and the trails are really getting beaten up. So, look for some other trails. You'll get just as good views. It might not be that one that everyone talks about, but you'll still have a good time. And I mean, going back to Franconia, it's above 5,000 feet, like a lot of our peaks are, and that's alpine zone. So if you step off trail, you're stepping on fragile vegetation that will not grow back once it's crushed. So definitely recommend staying on trail, no matter where you are, but particularly in the alpine zone.
Solid advice. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have that card that goes towards search and rescue efforts. I know that Colorado's trying to possibly implement that. And I think, especially knowing that a lot of them are doing it as a volunteer basis, the search and rescue members, to be able to provide them with support to continue to do what they do is something that I can get behind.
Yeah, it's a complex but very well put together system in New Hampshire. There's some books about it. I'm happy to send them to you if you're curious, but it's this group effort between New Hampshire Fish and Game, the Forest Service, and then volunteers for the search and rescue teams, and they work like clockwork. It's really quite something.
Yeah, please do, and I'll make sure to include those in the episode notes as well. Now, we're in spring of 2023 when we're recording this, Cindy, so we're about a fourth of the way through the year. What hiking goals do you have personally for 2023? And then what are some of the upcoming goals for 48 Peaks?
Sure, there's a lot. I'll start with myself. For me personally, I have always wanted to try backpacking. I have not yet gone on a backpacking trip, and I'm planning with some friends to do a 3-day Hemi loop, which is about 33 miles, with another hiking fundraiser from New Hampshire over Memorial Day weekend. And that actually covers about 12 to 14 peaks of the New Hampshire 4,000 footers. And there's 3 or 4 of them I haven't done. So I'll be adding to my list on that loop. That's my goal. It's going to happen. It looks like. In terms of the 4,000 footer list, I'm looking to pass the 30 peak mark on the list, which this backpacking trip will help me do. And then outside of hiking, I help manage the 48 Peaks Instagram account. So I want to remain just as excited about our milestones as when we had like 50 followers and all of them were my friends. Like when we hit 100 followers, it felt so huge. And I want to be just as excited when we one day hit like 1,000 followers, because I just want to keep growing this unique and special community of people for years to come. And that's really important to me. As for 48 Peaks as an event, we just want to continue growing and sharing 48 Peaks as a way to connect with those looking for a similar community of hikers and who are experiencing, a great amount of grief and difficulty from the Alzheimer's journey, be you a caregiver or potentially living with Alzheimer's. And we just want to keep raising funds and awareness so that one day Alzheimer's is nothing but a memory. And we hope to grow in the New England region as well.
I like both set of goals. I'm in the same boat as you, Cindy. I've never backpacked before. I've done camping, but it's you drive to your campsite. But I won a permit for, it's called the Enchantments here in Washington State.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah. So I finally got a permit, and not that it's going to force me, but now there's a motivation to do backpacking so I can be more prepared for that hike.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that a loop trail? I'm trying to remember with the Enchantments.
Yeah. So it's, I think, a total of 20 miles, and there's 2 different trailheads that you can end at or start at.
Oh, cool. That sounds a little like the Pemi loop that I'm going to do. You can start from like 2 main points and go around.
Well, we'll be cheering for you on your goals, and I know that you'll be able to hit them. And for folks that want to follow 48 Peaks on Instagram, what's the handle for you guys?
Sure. Our Instagram handle is 48 Peaks ALZ. You can find us on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group, and you can find us on our website, alz.org/48peaks. If you have a loved one who has Alzheimer's or dementia and you're looking for advice, we have a 24/7 helpline with real live trained people who will pick up the phone and speak with you in many different languages. And they're very wonderful and provide great advice. So the number is 1-800-272-3900. So please call anytime or visit the Alzheimer's Association's website, alz.org, to learn more about the helpline and just in general, their support and facts. And you can get involved wherever you are with The Longest Day, which is alz.org/the longest day. And we hope to see you out on the trails.
I love that helpline, and especially that it's in multiple languages so people can access their resources. My last question before we get to the this or that questions, Cindy, is, you guys have slowly started expanding outside of New Hampshire. Is there a potential for hiking related events to expand outside of the Northeast with the Alzheimer's Association?
So I know there are 2 spin-off programs in New York, the Adirondacks and the Catskills. I know in general for The Longest Day, there definitely are people in other states who sign up with that and then just say hiking is their activity. But if you're interested in creating a 48 peak specific event, you can definitely contact your local chapter. That actually happened with the Catskill event that's being created now. I had been talking with another podcast host who's based in the Catskills, and he expressed interest. So he's starting to work with his local chapter to create that event. So you can definitely create your own. It's always open to that. Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Well, Cindy, it has been amazing speaking with you and learning about 48 Peaks and the Alzheimer's Association, and also a little bit about your personal hiking experiences. This last bit of the podcast is a round of this or that questions. I'm going to give you 2 hiking related topics, and you kind of just choose the one that you prefer out of the 2. All right?
Oh, fun.
So the first one is, do you prefer ascending or descending?
Oh, ascending is like the bane of my existence. So I'm going to say descending because gravity works with me.
And how about waterfalls or summits?
Ooh, can I have both? I like summits. I like sitting and taking a summit nap and having a snack.
Oh, I like that. A summit nap. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how about switchbacks or straight up?
I'm going to say I'll take the straight up. The switchbacks aren't always friendly around here.
Oh, good to know.
Well, I don't know. It depends.
Depends on the hike.
How far I'm going straight up.
And how about trek poles or freehand?
Oh, definitely trek poles. My knees need it for sure.
And do you fill up before a hike or do you fill up after?
I will say fill up after. I'm not good about filling up before.
And do you prefer to bushwhack or to go around?
I would say if I need to, I would bushwhack. That sounds kind of fun.
And how about, do you jump in or do you stay dry?
Definitely jump in. If I need to get away from the bugs too, jump in.
And I'm interested in this one because you guys have the sunrises, but do you have a preference between sunsets or sunrises?
I would say sunsets. I'm not a morning person. I have been awake for sunrises, but not actually functional awake. So I would say sunsets because I can enjoy it.
And I think I know the answer to this one, but do you prefer spring flowers or fall colors?
Definitely fall colors. Even though the flowers last longer. Yeah.
And when is spring wildflower season in your neck of the woods?
We have some out right now, actually. The daffodils in my backyard are starting to fade, actually.
Oh, okay. Good to know. And then the last one is, do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been more generally tagging White Mountain National Forest instead of specific peaks. So I would say not to tag.
Well, that was it for the this or that question, Cindy. Again, it was really awesome to speak with you about the event as well as learning more about Alzheimer's and what the Alzheimer's Association is doing. Now, for our listeners, could you share once again the websites as well as the social media that they could find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Our Instagram is at 48peaksalz. We also have a Facebook group, which is 48 Peaks for the Longest Day. And you can find us on our website, alz.org/48 peaks. And we'd love to have you join us. Thank you, Ivan. It was so great to chat with you.
Thank you once again to Cindy for joining us on our latest bonus episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. Be sure to follow 48 Peaks on Instagram at 48 Peaks ALZ to keep up with the latest for their 2023 event. If you're interested in learning more about how you can help end Alzheimer's, be sure to check out the links in the episode show notes. We'll be putting out bonus episodes throughout the spring and summer, along with our regular episodes on Monday. Please be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on those. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. Happy trails, everyone. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsocks.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.